This defines everything. We're going to be talking about another NBA draft prospect that might be a good fit for the Chicago Bulls. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so before we jump into it, I first want to remind you that 69.5% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel. So like Modest Mazelis does in games, make sure that you slam dunk on that subscribe button for us, as it means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach our end of the season subscriber goal. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into the content today. And so we are talking about another NBA draft prospect, and we're talking about Nique Clifford, and he played for Colorado State and Colorado. And so I must say that before we jump into the numbers, I think that he does definitely check a lot of boxes here that the Chicago Bulls need to fill. And also, too, based off the interviews that the Chicago Bulls did at the NBA draft, Nique Clifford might be a player that does fit what the Chicago Bulls are looking for. And so let's start with the numbers for Nique Clifford. And so he is 6'6", 200 pounds. He is going to be considered a wing player. He averaged 18.9 points a game, 1.2 steals a game, 0.6 with his blocks, 9.6 rebounds, 4.4 assists a game, shot 77.7 from the free throw line and 37.7 from three, 49.6 from the field. And so pretty good percentages here. I think that if you look at his career totals, you will see a player that got progressively better. I think that any time that you come into a situation and you get better, that is always a plus. And so you like to see that with a player that you could be potentially adding. And so let's go into the pluses for him. And so number one, he does a terrific job, I think, of attacking the basket. I think if you look at the highlight clips, this is a player that definitely loves to go to the basket and attack that way. And I just love the fact that he really is looking for contact. I think that there were several times in his highlights where he does seek out some contact and really looking to get to the body of the defender. So I do like the toughness that he plays with, and I like the fact that he's looking to get downhill. I think that if you do get a downhill player like that, it certainly opens up a lot of other things in the offense, you know, if you're wanting to go ahead and open up some of your three-point shooters and things like that. And so that's why I definitely think he could be a fit there. Next, look, I think that he's terrific in tight space. And so he doesn't necessarily, I think, need a whole bunch of space to be a scorer. So I think it's a player that plays with some excellent body control, going back to the point of just using his body, getting a bit physical, because look, you can be bumped off balance. And so the fact that he lives for the contact, he can stay on balance and still get to the goal and finish. You love that about him. I think that any of these prospects coming out, I'll continue to say this, they're all going to have to get stronger. And so if he's coming in, he's got some good balance initially. You can imagine that he's going to get even better once he gets acclimated to the NBA, gets into the training facility, and they start to really work on him that way and get him onto a strength program. And so I think that there's some upside there. Next up, look, I think he can absolutely be a spot-up three-point shooter. I think that right now, immediately, he can contribute as a 3-and-D type of player. I think that he could be a player that he's going to locate on the perimeter. So you can imagine that if Josh Giddey, Kobe White, any of these guards are getting downhill, he's able to fill a certain space within the rotation, obviously, making that right read. And if you can get it to him, he is probably going to knock down the three-point shot. And so that is another plus. In fact, here's a stat here. This was via Yahoo Sports here. So 38.3 in his catch and shoots from three. He was 40% in his final year. So that lets you know that you are getting a three-point shooter for sure. And so next up, the next thing that I like about him is that he uses his length on defense. And so defensively, he definitely checks some boxes there, So using that length means that you can be able to, switch on multiple positions, and so I definitely think he'll be fine 1 to 3. Could he sneak in there and get you, a 4 guarded? I don't know about that. That's something that we'd have to see. But with his length and then his ability to defend, I think he's certainly a player that he would be very switchable. I think that he's terrific at reading the passing lanes, and so that suggests to me that he's going to be terrific with the off-ball stuff. So I like that defensively there. So making those reads and things like that, and that's all about anticipation. And so I like that, because if your player does get beat, not a very good defender, he has the ability to maybe erase some of those mistakes, get us into an earlier rotation that gets us into a better sequence defensively like that. And so I do like the fact that off ball, you can trust that he's going to be in the passing lanes and really anticipate the next move ahead. I think that that's what's big about being a defender. And next, I love the fact that he'll get over top of screens. And so he's not going to get hung up on the screens. I think that the lateral quickness is there for him. So I do like that he can get over top of the screens. And he just looks like a person that's going to be a disruptor on that end. And so when you're talking about disruptor defense, the Chicago Bulls need that type of identity. And so he's an identity type of player defensively. And I love the fact that he gets in there and he rebounds, because we know how huge that is. Look, going back to Josh Giddey and just his impact as a rebounder, there were times that is how we really got started with his energy, just getting boards and things like that. And I've said this multiple times on the channel that if you can get a person that can rebound very well, this is a game changer for you, because now you're talking about on the offensive end, you're getting extra possessions. Defensively, you're taking away possessions from another team. And so every time that you get an offensive board, your chances to score increase. And so that is another thing that I love about Nique Clifford. He will go in there and rebound. And so next up, look, let's go ahead and start to look at just the cons for him. And so look, the first thing that they talk about, if you look at any of the draft profiles and things like that, is that he is an older prospect. Currently, he's 23 now. He's going to be 24 in his rookie season. And so, he's coming out. He's pretty solid. I think he would be a very good piece for your rotation right now. We just don't know if there's much upside left, because I believe he's a super senior is what they call him. And so he'll be 24. So keep that in mind. Next with him, there's times where he can go cold, okay? So as good as he is with a catch and shoot and things like that, I think on the Ringer, there was one point in time in the season where he had missed 14 of 19 shots and really got into a cold rhythm. And that's something that you would be concerned about. But we've saw this before with Coby White, and he's able to figure it out. And I think that what you need to have there is confidence. And so he looks like a player that he does not lack confidence. And he's a player that I would probably trust in a slump like that, because ultimately speaking, I mean, that's going to happen to really just about every player, I think, out there that's played the game. You just get into situations where the shot's not falling. And I think that as you continue to play, as you get better with your craft, obviously you figure that out, and you'll get out of those, so to speak, those valleys where you go to the lowest of lows as far as knocking down shots. And so I think that he figures it out, not too worried about that, but that is going to be something that would be really something maybe of concern if you're drafting him. Is like, okay, is he going to be a player that will figure out a way to get into a consistent rhythm? I personally think he couldn't. So lastly, we're going to start to look at the player comparisons here. And so the first player that comes to mind is a current player and actually one of his teammates, and one of the players, a player that I would not have mind the Chicago Bulls getting last season, and that is Tristan da Silva. I think that he reminds me very much of Tristan da Silva, and Tristan da Silva, at times for the Magic, he looked like a player that was ready to contribute. In fact, he did. He did. And so I like that. And so that's what I'm talking about with Nique Clifford. You're getting a player, he's an older prospect, but I think he's ready to contribute right now. Now, am I saying he's going to be a superstar? I'm not saying that, but he definitely does fit into maybe what AK's plan is there as far as getting a younger player that he's looking for, multiple players to contribute. He's certainly a player that could contribute, and I'm talking about Nique Clifford and how he compares to Tristan da Silva. Next up, another comparison that he's been given is a Chris Middleton type of player. Desmond Bane is a player that I've seen mentioned around him. Josh Hart is another player. Moses Moody. And then also, too, Justin Holiday is another player. But again, I'm giving him more of a Tristan da Silva. He's a big wing type of player. And so I think that when you're looking at the Chicago Bulls, I think that one of their things that they really need to fill is the wing position. And I think that if he were to take off as far as an upside is concerned, I think I would be looking at something like what we see with the Thompson brothers, right? With what they're able to do as far as being able to knock down shots, being able to slash, being able to get rebounds, being able to play with a lot of high energy and things like that. Like, this would be the super upside for him if he can get to the next level, in my personal opinion. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, what are you guys thinking here about Nique Clifford? Do you feel like that AK would maybe make the decision to draft Nique Clifford? Do you think that he's going to go big and get, a 4 or a 5, which I definitely think the Chicago Bulls should do so. But if they are considering a wing, it's not like it's the best case scenario. I think that there's other wings that the Chicago Bulls can get, but I definitely think that he's a player that is going to come in and give you really a solid contribution. So anyway, let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys are thinking here. And before we jump out of here, just to let you know, the Chicago Bulls did do some interviews at the at the NBA Draft Combine in Chicago. And one of the reasons why I think Nique Clifford kind of fits into what the Chicago Bulls are looking for is because they did, go out there and they looked at a wing. In fact, they looked at Liam McNeely out of UConn. And so that is a player that certainly is going to be a wing. They looked at Colin Murphy Boyles, who we talked about as well, Asa Newell, and then also Thomas Sorber, who I just talked about, and Trey Johnson. Those are players that have been linked to the Chicago Bulls that I believe that they spoke to at the NBA Draft Combine, which is another reason why I think that Nique Clifford kind of, fits the build for maybe what the Chicago Bulls are looking for. But anyhow, you guys let me know. And like I always say, go Bulls, and we will see you on the next one. All right, peace.